Sir, there's been a mistake. Your wife checked in yesterday with another man. That sentence didn't land like a bomb. It landed like a needle, small, precise, and instantly fatal. I was standing by the window of room 508, sipping burnt hotel coffee while reviewing pitch slides for a client I barely cared about when the phone rang. A polite chime, a cheerful voice, then that sentence. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. That's impossible, I said. She's home with the kids. The silence that followed was too long. I could hear something in the background, papers shifting, a breath being held. Then, sir, please come to the lobby. The line went dead. I stood there for a full 5 seconds before moving. That's how long it took to feel my hands go numb. I looked around the room, as if the furniture could explain something. The suitcase, the dress shirt I'd ironed, the silence of a normal morning, now radioactive. I took the elevator down like I was sinking into something, slow, silent, heavy. When the doors opened to the lobby, the manager was already waiting. Nervous smile, clipboard, thin hands that trembled slightly as he gestured for me to follow him behind the front desk. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a wrong number. It was a system glitch that exposed something no one meant for me to see. And by the way, more than 90% of people who hear stories like this never hit the subscribe button. If you're one of them, consider fixing that. It's free, and it keeps this team digging deep into stories most people don't want told. Anyway, the office door clicked shut behind me, and I saw the monitor. Security feed. Timestamped. Blurry, black and white footage of the hotel lobby from the day before. 5:47 p.m., the manager whispered. Here. I leaned in. There she was. My wife. Not a lookalike. Not a maybe. It was her. Same walk. Same gray coat. Hair up in the way she always does when she's playing corporate chic. Smiling like she was 22 again. And next to her, some man I'd never seen in my life. Tall. Confident. Wearing that slightly too slim suit men in middle management wear when they think they're pulling something off. She touched his arm as they walked toward the elevators. I watched her press the button. She kissed his cheek while they waited. They both laughed. Then the elevator arrived, and they disappeared inside. The manager didn't say a word. I didn't ask questions. I just pointed. Do you have a copy? He nodded shakily. I thought you knew. I'm sorry. We have to log ID for all check-ins. And when I saw the last name, email it to me. I gave him a burner address, one I hadn't used in years. Then I walked back to the elevator, but not to go to my room. Not yet. I stepped outside first, into the cold morning air. I needed to breathe something that wasn't recycled betrayal. That footage wasn't a mistake. It wasn't just infidelity. It was familiarity, comfort, coordination. She hadn't stumbled into a fling. She planned to stay. Which meant I wasn't just a husband in the dark. I was a decoration. Something she placed neatly on the shelf while she moved into whatever new version of her life she thought she could curate from hotel sheets and room service. I called no one. I told no one. I just went upstairs and opened my laptop. Let me be clear. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning clarity. Because if she was here with him, then who the hell was home with my kids? And if you think that question didn't make my vision go dark for a second, you've clearly never had your world flipped before breakfast. The thing they don't tell you about surveillance footage is how silent it is. No background noise. No laughter. No footsteps. Just movement. Her movement. His movement. My wife, brushing her hair off her shoulder like she always does when she's about to make someone feel special. He leaned in close, and she didn't flinch. She smiled wider. The kind of smile I used to think was reserved for anniversaries and Sunday mornings with pancakes. The timestamp in the top left of the screen made it worse. 5:47 p.m. At 5:47 p.m. yesterday, I was on a video call with my youngest, helping him finish a math worksheet from 3 states away. He was whining about fractions. I told him Mom would help him after dinner, that she was probably making tacos. Meanwhile, she was here, pressed up against some guy in the elevator lobby of a hotel we'd both stayed at dozens of times. The one where she said she didn't like the pillows. Where we once made love after a client gala, just because it felt spontaneous. She kissed him. Not a peck. A practiced, easy kiss. Like this wasn't the first time. The manager stood a foot behind me, trying not to breathe. I could hear him fidgeting with his pen. I could smell his guilt. I thought you knew, he muttered, like a man who'd seen too much and said too little. I didn't respond. Just watched the screen as the two of them disappeared into the elevator, her hand tucked under his arm like it belonged there. She looked relaxed, radiant. She looked like someone who had already decided she wasn't going to explain this to anyone. Especially not me. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was worse. Disbelief curdled into something cold, not sharp like a blade, more like ice pressing against the skin, slowly, until it numbs everything it touches. Please email me a copy, I said. He nodded and tapped keys with trembling fingers. Do you want footage from the suite level? They used her name for the reservation. But everything, I said. Every angle. I left the office without another word. I didn't even look at him. What was there to say? The man just opened a door he couldn't close. Maybe he'd go home tonight and hold his wife a little tighter. Or maybe he'd avoid eye contact and check her search history. Everyone's loyal until there's footage. In the elevator ride back up, I stared at my own reflection. There was nothing dramatic about it. I didn't look like a man unraveling. I looked exactly the same. That's the worst part. You expect infidelity to come with some cinematic breakdown, but in reality, you're just standing under flickering fluorescent lights in a hotel elevator, holding onto your sanity with white knuckles and pretending your pulse isn't pounding like war drums. Back in the room, I shut the curtains. I sat down on the edge of the bed, and I replayed the footage. Over and over. She didn't glance around nervously. She didn't act like she was sneaking anything. That smile wasn't guilty. It was free. And the man? I didn't recognize him. Not at first. But something about his posture, it gnawed at me. The way he walked. The way he carried himself like he owned whatever room he stepped into. That's when I remembered the holiday party. The one she said was just internal, where spouses weren't invited because it was too crowded. She showed me photos after. One of them had this guy in the background, slightly blurred, holding a glass of wine, talking too close to her assistant. I didn't ask back then. I do now. I paused the footage on the moment she kissed him, opened my laptop, pulled the still, zoomed, cropped, saved, titled at 5:47 p.m_priority. Then I sat in the quiet. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Because if she's here, checked into a suite under her name, kissing a man I barely recognize, then where are my kids? And why the hell hasn't she texted once since yesterday? Something was wrong. Not just marriage wrong. Bigger, colder, coordinated. And I was done sitting still. The moment I shut the door to room 508, I locked it. Not out of fear, out of instinct. Like something sacred had been broken, and the world beyond the door was no longer allowed in. I pulled the curtains tight, slid the chain across, and opened my laptop. I didn't hesitate. I uploaded the footage from the manager's drive into a private cloud I hadn't touched in 4 years. Originally created to store legal case files, confidential mergers, NDAs, documents that needed quiet protection. Now, it had a new purpose. I paused the video at the clearest frame of the man's face. Pulled a still. Zoomed. Enhanced. There it was. Smug. Clean-shaven. Mid-40s. Tan. Confident in that effortless, corporate predator kind of way. The kind of guy who always makes sure to laugh just a little louder at his own jokes in the break room, especially when your wife is nearby. And then it hit me. He wasn't unfamiliar. He was familiar in the worst way. The regional director from my wife's company. He'd shown up in that quarterly newsletter she forwarded a few months back. One of those PR fluff pieces. Meet our leadership team. She rolled her eyes at it over dinner and called it marketing garbage, but I still remembered the headshots. He was second from the top. I pulled up the company's site. There he was. Derek L., Regional Director of Operations, overseeing 4 states, including ours. I read his blurb like I was reading an obituary I wasn't done writing. Strategic innovator. Father of 2. Passionate about mentoring the next generation of female leadership. Oh, I bet he is. I minimized the browser and clicked into the other surveillance files. One was labeled Suite Check-In. Timestamp 10 minutes after the elevator kiss. I hit play. They walked to the front desk. She handed over her ID. She signed a document, her signature. I knew it. Recognized the little curl on the Y. I've seen it on birthday cards. PDA slips. Mortgage papers. The man, Derek, stood close behind her, hand grazing her lower back. No hesitation. No secrecy. Like this wasn't his first time sliding in behind someone else's wife. The desk clerk smiled. Typed. Handed over a keycard folder. 2 cards inside. Then came the tell. She gave one to him without looking. Not a courtesy. Not a joke. Routine. He pocketed the card. She kissed his cheek again. The camera didn't show them walking toward the elevators this time. But it didn't need to. She had checked in using her own name. Booked the suite with our credit card. Yes, the corporate travel one I set up for her 5 years ago. I opened the bank app. Searched by location. There it was. Pending charge. $418.72. Executive double suite. Check-in. Yesterday. She hadn't even tried to hide it. There's a difference between a spontaneous affair and a logistical betrayal. One is selfish. The other is strategic. This wasn't lust. This was planning. And it wasn't just betrayal. It was arrogance. She assumed I'd never find out. That I was too far away, too distracted, too trusting. She counted on me being dependable. And dependable men get cheated on quietly. I sat back in the chair, fingers steepled under my chin. My face was calm, but my chest was tight with a heat I refused to let erupt. Rage is useful only when it's aimed properly. Otherwise, it's just noise. And I was done being noise in her life. I opened a new encrypted folder, named it primary_evidence, dragged in the photos, the video files, the credit card record. Then I started a log. I've built cases before. Watched lies collapse under the weight of well-organized facts. This would be no different. Except now, the subject wasn't some faceless executive. It was my wife and her boss, and they had no idea who they'd just tried to outmaneuver. I didn't need confrontation. I needed confirmation and control. The moment I saved the last surveillance clip, a thought slipped into my mind like a crack forming under pressure. Thin, sharp, impossible to ignore. Where are the kids? I hadn't talked to them since yesterday afternoon. Just a short video call with our youngest while he tried to explain a volcano project for school. He'd been distracted, grinning, hyped about something in the background I couldn't see. I assumed it was his sister messing around off camera. I remember thinking I'd call again in the evening, but I didn't. I got distracted with emails, then fell asleep early after a long pitch session. No big deal. Until now. I picked up my phone and texted my mother-in-law. Me? Everything okay at home? The reply came in seconds. Her? With the kids? I assumed they were with you too at the retreat. I stared at the screen. Retreat? I called her. She picked up instantly, already sounding confused. Is something wrong? I thought you were all at that leadership retreat thing. Emily mentioned it last week, said it was last minute, that you'd be tied up but the kids would get to tag along. I felt my voice flatten. I'm not at a retreat, Diane. I'm on a business trip. Alone. Silence. Wait, so the kids aren't with you? No, they're supposed to be home. She paused, then muttered, Oh my God. I hung up. The school was next. I dialed the front office. Used my dad voice, the one that doesn't explain, doesn't joke, just asks. Hi. Can you confirm if either Mason or Ellie were at school yesterday? The woman hesitated. Clicked keys. Then, no, neither were marked present yesterday or today. Sorry, I assumed it was a family trip. We weren't informed. I nearly dropped the phone. My hands were sweating. Not from fear, yet, but from the unmistakable knowledge that something was very wrong. I called the babysitter, Claire. 17. Sweet kid. Loves the kids. Watches them every other weekend. She picked up, sounding rushed. Oh hey, I didn't expect you to call. Everything okay? Where are the kids, Claire? A pause. Too long. They're with that family friend at the lake house. Remember? The one your wife said she booked last minute. I need an address. Now. I don't know it. She just said it was about 2 hours north. Gave me a pin to drop them off at. I figured it was a vacation thing. They seemed really excited. Claire, did you see this lake house? No. It was late. She had me meet a driver at that gas station off Route 11. Said he'd take them the rest of the way. My stomach twisted. What did the driver look like? I don't know, maybe late 30s? Hat, sunglasses. SUV. She said it was someone from Derek's team. There it was. I hung up. My wife had orchestrated a handoff, involving my children, to a location no one could name, with a man I didn't know, under the direction of the same guy she checked into a hotel with. That wasn't a weekend getaway. That was a removal. She didn't just cheat. She moved the pieces like someone anticipating fallout, as if she knew there'd be no way to explain this if I saw it. So she made sure I wouldn't, until it was too late. I opened a private GPS tracker account I hadn't used in months, one I installed on the kids' iPads years ago after a camping scare when Ellie wandered off. I pinged both devices. No signal, either powered off or out of range. I stared at the screen, pulse in my throat. My daughter doesn't go an hour without watching her stupid drawing videos. My son lives on games. They were never offline, unless someone made them be. And suddenly, every single piece of this wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about custody, control, containment. I opened a new document, titled it Child Transfer Incident. I logged every call, time-stamped each conversation, listed every detail. No school attendance, no known location, false information given to family and sitter. I saved it in the evidence folder, red flagged it. Then I sat on the bed, hands clasped, breathing shallow. My wife had moved the children without notice, left no contact trail, and lied to everyone. I wasn't watching a marriage fall apart. I was watching a campaign being waged. And now, it was my move. I sat at the desk in room 508, staring at the slow blink of the laptop's cursor like it owed me an answer. The footage, the check-in documents, the school records, the tracker pings, all of it stacked neatly in folders, named clinically, like I was prepping for trial. Because I was. She didn't know it yet, but I'd stopped being her husband 2 hours ago. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't touched in years. Greg Leland, law school roommate, now a corporate attorney in New York. We used to joke that he'd end up defending war criminals, and I'd end up suing God. Instead, he'd carved out a niche doing internal compliance and background sweeps for billion-dollar firms. And most importantly, he owed me. I'd taken the fall for a bar exam prank he orchestrated. Saved his career. Never asked for repayment. Until now. I called. He picked up after 2 rings, his voice still fast and cocky. If you're calling from a jail cell, I swear I'm not bailing you out. Greg, I need a favor. Quiet. Fast. Off the record. Silence. Then, a shift in his tone. What's going on? I just sent you a file. Check your private email. Subject, Derek L. Priority. More silence. Clicking. All right, got it. Who's this guy? My wife's regional director. I need everything. Employment record, marital status, HR complaints, financial dirt if you can find it. And I need it clean. No flags. You think he's dirty? I think he's in my hotel room suite with my wife. And my kids are missing. That got his full attention. Jesus. Okay. Give me 3 hours. I'll give you 2. I hung up. The room was quiet again. Just the low hum of the mini fridge. Somewhere down the hall, a vacuum started up. Mundane hotel sounds. Like the world was still pretending everything was normal. I didn't sit. I couldn't. I paced. I checked the footage again. I zoomed in on every movement, every glance she gave him. I tried to see some flicker of doubt in her eyes. Nothing. She looked happy. Worse, she looked sure. I opened my email to draft something. Anything. To get ahead of what was coming. Maybe send a formal custody notice. Maybe prep a preemptive HR claim myself. But I stopped halfway through typing. Because Greg called back. 84 minutes. That's all it took. You were right to call, he said. The guy's name is Derek Langley. Married. 2 kids. Lives in Boulder. Wife's name is Rachel. Been together 15 years. He paused. But here's the kicker. He's already under HR investigation. 2 separate complaints filed in the past 6 months. Both junior employees. One of them from your wife's office. My jaw clenched. Filed or buried. Still under review. But from what I pulled, the complaints include inappropriate comments, excessive attention, and something about a closed-door mentoring session that crossed lines. Of course, he wasn't a new player. He was a serial operator, the kind of guy who weaponizes position, credibility, and plausible deniability. And my wife? She was either his newest target or his co-conspirator. Anything else? His financials are solid. But there's a pattern. He uses personal credit cards to book work trips, then gets reimbursed. Skirts some of the reporting structure. HR hasn't nailed him yet, but they're looking. This little weekend rendezvous of his. It'll light a fire. I nodded, eyes locked on the still image of Derek's smug grin in the suite lobby. Thanks, Greg. You just gave me everything I needed. Are you going to file something? Not yet. A pause. You okay? No. I hung up. I wasn't okay. But I wasn't broken either. I wasn't the only one she was lying to. This wasn't just infidelity. It was part of a rot bigger than our marriage. Bigger than one hotel weekend. It was leverage now. A pattern of abuse, misconduct, and deception wrapped in company logos and business class travel. They were sloppy. And I was patient. I opened a new folder. Named it. Langley_conflict_record. Then I dragged in Greg's email. Screenshotted the call log. Labeled it. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a strategist. And the next move wasn't emotional. It was surgical. I didn't sleep. Not because I was consumed by rage or heartbreak or any of those theatrical emotions people write about in novels. No, I didn't sleep because I wasn't done building yet. Some men explode when they're betrayed. I document. At 3:14 a.m., I turn on my old ThinkPad. Yes, the clunky one with the duct tape on the corner and the paranoia kit, loaded in a folder labeled tax receipts. Years ago, after a security breach at work that nearly cost us a major merger, I started logging shared cloud devices, phones, tablets, laptops. At first, it was just precaution. Then, after my wife's second weekend work retreat, turned out to be an Instagram story slip-up involving cocktails and someone else's wristwatch. I expanded the coverage. I never told her. Why would I? She said I was too controlling whenever I asked where she was, and it was easier to be labeled paranoid than be proven right. So I smiled, nodded, and let her connect all our devices to the shared iCloud so we could send photos of the kids easier. She forgot all about it. I didn't. The app was old, slow, but functional. I punched in the encryption key. It pulled the logs. Her iPad had auto-synced at 11:47 p.m. last night. From this hotel's Wi-Fi. 6 photos. I opened them one by one. The first, a champagne toast in bed. 2 glasses. His and hers. Her painted nails. No wedding ring. The second, her holding up the hotel room key card like a badge of honor. The number, 1206, clearly visible in the corner. Her smile wide, rehearsed. The kind she gives when she thinks no one's watching who matters. The third one made my stomach flip. Not from pain, but from the sheer audacity. She was laughing. Really laughing. That deep, head thrown back kind of laugh I hadn't seen since our 10th anniversary. Her hair was down. She wore that navy silk robe I bought her on a layover in Milan. Around her neck was the sapphire pendant I gave her the night we paid off the house. And resting comfortably on her thigh was his hand. Visible. Possessive. Like they weren't even pretending anymore. I sat back. Exhaled. Still no rage. Just clarity. Because now it wasn't just footage. It wasn't just suspicion or innuendo, or maybe it's not what it looks like. It was what it looked like. And I had a timestamp, a face, a location, and a physical item, my gift, used as the centerpiece in a scene of betrayal. She didn't just cheat. She documented it. I copied the files into the encrypted drive, added metadata tags, sapphire_necklace, sweet_photo, champagne_toasts. I ran a GPS match on the photo data, confirmed, geolocation pings from inside the hotel. Same floor as the suite Derek booked under her name. She was sloppy. I was not. The beautiful thing about quiet planning is that no one sees it coming. There's no screaming, no door slamming, no broken dishes or dramatic ultimatums. Just the slow, methodical pulling of every loose thread until the whole thing unravels in your hand. She wanted freedom? She just gave me custody, asset control, and public narrative, all wrapped in JPGs with built-in EXIF data. I opened a new folder, Personal Device Sync, NOV_508, dragged the photos in, cataloged them. Then I opened our shared Google Calendar. There, still visible, was an upcoming couples retreat next weekend. She'd booked it months ago, wanted to reconnect. I remember smiling when she showed me. She called it a fresh start. She was using it as cover. Another tab, her email drafts. She didn't log out. Amateurs never do. A partially written message to someone named Rachel, subject line, I can explain. Rachel, Derek's wife. I clicked save and closed it. Now I had more than leverage. I had options. I pulled up a notepad and wrote one word. Sequence. It was time to think like a chess player. Each asset, each mistake, each photo, pieces on the board. Her queen had wandered. Time to introduce the bishop. At 6:59 p.m., I sat on the edge of the bed with my thumb hovering over send. No shaking hands. No hesitation. Just the weight of one message, crafted not in anger, but with precision. This wasn't a desperate plea or an emotional outburst. It was a carefully arranged row of dominoes, and I was about to flick the first one. The recipient, Andrew Holloway, Senior VP, Eastern Division. My wife's boss's boss. A man who, according to his company bio, takes integrity seriously. A man who had been quoted in an HR training video saying, "Protect the culture or step aside." Perfect. The text was short, surgical. Thought you'd want to know who your regional director is traveling with, and whose name is on the suite. Below it, a clean PDF bundle. I titled it Langley_compliance_trigger.pdf. Inside, still shots of Derek and my wife kissing at the elevator. Her signature on the check-in log. The hotel reservation under her name. HR complaint summary Greg had pulled, complete with case numbers and internal review status. A photo of the room key. The champagne in-bed photo with her necklace, time-stamped, geotagged. Screenshots from the iPad tracker logs and school call summary showing both kids were absent, without formal notice. Notes on the unauthorized child handoff to an unidentified adult per the babysitter's account. No rage. No commentary. Just facts that spoke louder than any accusation ever could. I hit send at exactly 7:05 p.m. Then I put the phone down and walked to the window. Drew the curtains back. Watched the amber glow of the street lamps stretch across the parking lot. Something subtle shifted in the air. Not like thunder rolling in. More like the moment right before a scalpel cuts. Clean. Controlled. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. This wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about showing them, both of them, that the man they sidelined wasn't asleep. I'd been quiet, sure. Polite. Predictable. But predictable is only dangerous when it's also patient. Within 10 minutes, the read receipt confirmed it. Hey, Holloway opened your message. 7:10 p.m. The chain reaction had begun. And the best part? I wasn't even in the room anymore. I let that message do what it needed to do. Let it circle corporate channels like a shark sniffing blood. HR would get involved. Legal. PR. Maybe even risk and compliance if they had any brains left in that company. Because this wasn't just about workplace misconduct anymore. It was about exposure, scandal, liability. Let's see how committed they were to mentoring the next generation of female leadership now. I knew how these corporate organisms worked. I designed policies like the ones Derek had just tripped over with his dick. There's always a point where the system stops protecting you and starts protecting itself. And that point usually arrives wrapped in bullet-pointed PDFs sent by someone with nothing left to lose. She had no idea what had just been set in motion. And the beauty of it? She wouldn't hear it coming. She'd feel the tremors first. A meeting that gets rescheduled. A polite email from HR. A glance from a coworker that lingers too long. Derek's sudden change in tone. The way he avoids eye contact. Then the call from upstairs. Then the questioning. Then the realization. And that's when she'll run to her phone. That's when she'll start dialing. And that's when she'll see that I haven't called once. Because I don't need to. I'm not in the conversation anymore. I am the conversation. At 10:11 p.m., the hotel phone rang again. Same front desk voice. A little more nervous this time. Like they'd been pulled into something bigger than they signed up for. Sir, they're asking for you at the bar. A woman and a man with her. Should I tell them you're unavailable? I didn't hesitate. Tell her. I'll meet her at 9 a.m. Conference room C. Click. I stared at the ceiling for a while after that. Not because I was uncertain. I was just conserving energy. You don't storm into a war room with adrenaline. You walk in with control. You carry yourself like the ending's already been written, and you're just here to turn the final page. I barely slept, but I wasn't tired. At 8:55 a.m., I walked into conference room C. The hotel staff had done what I asked. Basic table setup, chairs, projector screen already queued. Coffee pot in the corner. Neutral. Sterile. Like a small arbitration room before a corporate firing. Her boss was already seated. Andrew Holloway. Polished. Quiet. Holding a slim folder, knuckles white. I nodded. He didn't nod back. To his left sat an HR rep, mid-30s, hair in a bun, lips tight. Next to her, Greg. Yes. Greg flew in. You wanted surgical? He said when I opened the door. I brought the scalpel. At 9:02 a.m., she walked in. She looked like someone who hadn't slept. No makeup. Hair tied back in a messy bun she only ever wore on sick days. Her cardigan was buttoned wrong, one side drooping lower than the other. Her face? Pale. Lips dry. Hands fidgeting with the strap of her purse like a student who knows the test is coming and studied the wrong material. She saw me. Froze. Then noticed who else was in the room. Her eyes landed on Holloway. Then the HR rep. Then Greg. And finally the screen at the front of the room. She didn't sit. I motioned to the chair opposite mine. You should sit. I don't understand what. I didn't raise my voice. Play the video. Greg tapped his laptop. The room dimmed slightly as the footage lit up the screen. First clip, the elevator. 5:47 p.m. Her kissing Derek's cheek. Smiling like she'd just won something. Second clip, front desk check-in. Her signature. Room key handed over. Third clip, the suite hallway. The mentoring. Door closing. Fourth, the champagne photo. Her necklace. His hand. The laugh. The room was silent. Even the coffee pot seemed to hold its breath. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just watched, lips parted, chest rising and falling faster than before. Her hand gripped the table edge like it might float away if she let go. When the video stopped, no one spoke. Then her boss, calm, brutal, said, effective immediately, both of you are on leave. An internal investigation will proceed. Legal will follow up. She turned to me then. Finally, voice barely above a whisper. Please don't do this. I looked at her, not as a husband, but as a man reading a resume full of lies. I didn't yell. I didn't smirk. I didn't flinch. You already did. Then I slid a folder across the table. It landed with a soft thump in front of her. Inside, separation terms. Custody structure. Asset division. Non-disclosure clause. Her hands trembled as she opened it. You planned all this, she whispered. No, I said, standing slowly. You planned this. I just responded accordingly. Greg stood too. If you'd like a separate legal counsel, we're prepared to pause this discussion. But everything you see there is pre-validated and admissible. She looked like she might vomit. Her boss stood last. We'll have someone from Risk contact you this afternoon. I suggest you cooperate fully. I nodded to the HR rep, then to Greg. Walked out without a word more. Behind me, I heard her voice crack. Not in rage. Not in denial. In realization. Because she didn't walk into a meeting. She walked into the mirror she thought would never reflect her back. And now? Now the reflection was permanent. She stared at the folder like it might bite her. Just the sight of it. Legal blue cover, heavy clasp, my name on the tab, seemed to drain what little color remained in her face. You all ready? She whispered. I didn't blink. Clause 4 covers the children. Clause 9 covers the house. She didn't reach for it. She didn't even breathe. Just sat frozen, eyes flicking between the document and my face like one of them would offer a lifeline. Let me tell you something about silence. It's not empty. Not when it's earned. This wasn't the silence of awkwardness. This was the silence that comes after a long, deliberate countdown, right before everything explodes. Except there would be no fireworks. No yelling. Just consequences. Her boss cleared his throat. We'll handle internal matters, he said, voice flat, clipped. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending investigation. Her eyes darted to him. Wait, what? But this was outside of work. It was personal. It was booked through company travel, with a subordinate under investigation. And he glanced at me briefly. You used a corporate card for one of the dinners, which qualifies this as misconduct under Section 14. Your HR policy says so. You helped write it. Her mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out. I pushed the folder slightly closer across the table. Clause 7 is the NDA. It protects the kids. And you. She finally reached for it. Her fingers shook. This is everything. You've already signed. I nodded. 3 copies. Filed electronically. 1 for the mediator. 1 for my attorney. And 1 for you, if you'd like to be involved. Greg leaned forward. You'll want to consult your own counsel. But I'll tell you what I told him. This is generous. No alimony. No retroactive claims. Custody split but structured around stability. No press. No corporate leak. All you have to do is sign. She looked up at me with that same expression I saw the day her father died. Numb, helpless, betrayed by time itself. Her voice cracked. Please don't do this. My voice didn't rise. Didn't even waver. You already did. That's when she broke. Not loudly. Not the dramatic sobs she used to fake when she couldn't win an argument. This was quieter. More jagged. A single tear, like a leak in a pressure tank, followed by the kind of breath that sounds like a person realizing they can't rewind the clock. I didn't gloat. I didn't comfort her. I let the moment rot in its own gravity. Greg stood. The HR rep packed her files. Her boss didn't say another word, just left, briefcase under his arm, eyes forward like she no longer existed. She reached for the pen, then stopped, as if one last corner of her mind still believed this was a dream, that she'd wake up in bed next to me, the kids downstairs, coffee brewing, and none of this would be real. But it was real. And the paper in front of her? That was the receipt. Her hand hovered. You didn't even yell, she murmured. You just watched me lie, then build a case. I tilted my head. That's the thing about trust. Once it's gone, there's nothing to argue with. Just facts. You were always so good at pretending you didn't see things. I almost laughed. No, I was good at waiting to see what you'd do when you thought I didn't. That silenced her. The pen stayed on the table. The folder stayed open. And for the first time in years, I stood on the other side of her guilt with no need to explain, beg, or chase. I didn't win. There was no victory parade. No high. But I'd done the one thing she never expected. I ended the game without playing hers. And now, she had no cards left. The lobby smelled like overripe lilies and hotel-grade carpet cleaner. Noon sunlight cut through the glass front doors, landing in neat little squares across the tile, like the world outside was trying to look cleaner than it was. I walked up to the front desk, travel bag slung over my shoulder, same as always. Same hotel, same checkout process. But I wasn't the same. The manager, the one who made the call 2 days ago, the man whose hands still trembled slightly when I approached, stood stiffly behind the counter. He didn't say, "How was your stay?" He didn't ask if I needed help with transportation. He just offered me a sealed envelope. "From your wife," he said quietly. I didn't take it right away. Just looked at it for a moment. White. No name. Handwritten. I already knew what was inside. I opened it anyway. Two things. First, a note. Scrawled in her unmistakable handwriting. Rushed and crooked like it always was when she panicked. I don't know how to fix this. I didn't plan it like this. I swear. Please call me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Second, a piece of paper. Folded once, colored with markers. A drawing. Two stick figures, smiling. One taller, with brown hair. One shorter, holding what I assume was meant to be a balloon. At the top, me and Daddy at the zoo. I stood there for a long minute. The weight of that paper heavier than anything I'd filed the past 48 hours. It didn't change anything, but it reminded me what mattered. What was mine, and not hers to weaponize or shuffle into a suitcase with an alibi. I folded the note and the drawing back into the envelope, tapped it once on the counter, then slid it back across to the manager. If she comes looking, I said, voice calm, deliberate, tell her I said this. Next time, check the cameras before lying. He swallowed, nodded. No drama, no crowd, no final monologue. Just that. I turned, walked out the glass doors, and stepped into the sunlight. I didn't look back. Not at the building, not at the desk, not at the corner where she kissed him in the footage I'll never need to watch again. I walked to the car I rented under a different name. No music, no GPS, just the hum of quiet freedom. It wasn't happiness, not really, but it was clarity. And that, in the end, was worth more than any apology she'd scribble on hotel stationery. She could keep the envelope. I'd keep the truth.